Welcome to the Hellscape. This is my first episode. Let me give you a tour of the garden. I started this garden in earnest during the pandemic as a way of educating my son about gardening and, a connectedness to nature. But it grew into something else, especially as inflation rose, and I wanted to find a way of making food cheaper in the desert, which is a particular challenge. So I've got some land. So how am I going to make it useful? I could just put a bunch of cactus, for aesthetic purposes out there, and I have done that in this middle section. Just taking clippings and popping them into the soil. And I'm kind of keeping them in reserve for future projects. I'm just not sure where I'm going to go with them. But also, I want to be able to eat some of this stuff. So my real effort is in keeping plants that I can eat and plants that thrive in this environment. So it's an extreme environment, but there are plants that do thrive here. Some just absolutely love the sun, and I will show you guys how to grow some of those in future episodes. So here's a quick tour of just some of the plants we've got growing here. We have some amaranth that I recently trimmed and some nasturtiums. Kale. I grew a lot of cruciferous things over the winter, and now that we're in April, some of them are going to be going away, and I got to transition to the more hardy summer-like plants. Looks like I've got a little sunflower here, more kale, a little bit of basil hiding there in the background, and then some celery that I had part of from the kitchen that I just replanted. It's going to be getting really hot soon, so that's probably going away. I've got Brussels sprouts that I've never been able to get to bloom, but that will be a challenge for a future episode. I have more nasturtiums over here, plus a lot of baby tomatoes that came from my arrow garden I transplanted into the backyard. Over here is elephant foot plant, more amaranth. My okra is coming back after barely surviving the winter. I've got some beans. They're very crowded. Don't worry about it. I'm going to do beans better next time. More tomatoes. The trick with tomatoes is it's going to get really hot really soon, so I may have to move them. We've got aubergine or eggplant, and they're beautiful. If they turn yellow, that's bad, but purple ones are perfect. And then this over here is my mojito plant. Mint plant, and peppermint, Egyptian spinach, leftover cauliflower that I use for the leaves, some butter lettuce that's at the end of its season, some broccoli, wood sorrel, which tastes very lemony, and I have yet to really properly use, and the season is coming to an end for it, so I might have to move on from that. This is a potato that I planted. Just a leftover potato, and if I dig around there somewhere, I might be able to find the root, but I don't want to mess it up right now. Another potato. Onions that were going funny in my pantry, so it was time to replant them outdoors. And then we have the loofah plant. This arch my dad left behind before he moved to Costa Rica, which is a really great structure to grow loofah on. Yeah, loofah as in the sponges. And then if I crack this, there'll be a loofah sponge inside, but we'll save that for another episode. We've got Russian kale, and we have more okra over here, but this okra is very fresh. I just planted it a few weeks ago as opposed to the ones that you saw earlier, because earlier ones basically kind of went dormant over the winter and are coming back because of the heat. More nasturtiums. We've got catnip in here, a little bit of catnip, and some beans and nasturtiums. They're all a bit crowded, but half of the stuff is just experimentation. And then there is my beautiful jalapenos. Yeah, you can't be in the Southwest and not embrace the jalapenos. This is a newly planted lemongrass. I got it from a plant stand. Look at those peppers hanging out in the agave. I've got a lemon tree. This is not going to be its final place. It's just a temporary solution. I've got a moringa tree, which I'll talk more about in a future episode. Got some more amaranth growing, and tomatoes, and a roselle, which is a hibiscus. So much aloe. More nasturtiums and tomatoes, lettuce, lots of garlic from the kitchen, that the little cloves that are useless. Yeah, I'm planting those. And then I've got some baby eggplants sprouting up. And then if we go over here, I have more eggplant planted, some zinnias. Funny little experiment I have with moringa, which I'll explain in a future episode. Lots and lots of aloe. And this area I call Hummingbird Haven because we've got a lot of hummingbirds. They go for the flowers. They go for the feeders I've got out. Sugar cane, which is also good for my mojitos. And some weird random cruciferous plants mixed in with some sugar cane. Sometimes there's no method to my madness. And some of these nasty globe chamomile flowers, which I'm going to burn. There's my weed collection. No, not the fun kind. Phoenix has been overrun by globe chamomile, which I'll cover in another episode. And then back here, I'm sorry, it's really ugly right now, but I got a lot of gardening materials. And I also have a water barrel here. The water comes right off the roof and drips right down in here. I've got it double grate down there, so that way we don't get mosquitoes, and that helps me water some of these plants in the side yard. I once knew a couple from Connecticut who were earnestly trying to grow some strawberries in their garden, and they just didn't understand how harsh it can be here. And they had the strawberries out in the open, and yeah, they perished. No, not the people, but the strawberries. And my goal with this vlog is to teach people how to garden in Zone 9, save money, basically, hopefully spend almost nothing to have a very elaborate garden. Because think about it, just price-wise. You can go Home Depot and you could buy a lot of stuff, and it will, just between the effort and the money and the materials, you're not really going to break even. So how do you make a garden that you're not spending much on other than a little bit of water and effort? So a little back history. My grandfather had a degree from Texas A&M in agriculture, and he taught his wife and children a bit about gardening. And honestly, I ended up growing up with my Nana, and her knowledge passed down from him to her and to me and all of her other grandchildren. I'm not totally unfamiliar on how to garden, but I know some people are. So let's not be the couple from Connecticut that didn't know how to plant strawberries in the desert. Let's try and work with the environment and see what sort of plants we can eat and not have to go to the grocery store and pay for. So you may be asking, what did I pay for? Well, a couple wheelbarrows, because this used to all be grass, and we moved gravel from the side yard and a few other areas out here. So we needed the wheelbarrows. And other than the wheelbarrows and a lot of effort and a lot of shoveling, most of everything else I got for free. So join me on this planting adventure, and let's see if we can survive the summer and hopefully have a few good salads and casseroles to go with it. And I'll be providing future resources on how you too can make your own garden. So don't forget to subscribe and like. These videos don't make themselves.